Hey Orange, guess what?
What?
Pac-Man. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Pac-Palooza. This week we'll have a video dedicated to the Great Yellow One every day in anticipation for the Rise and Fall of Pac-Man video coming this Saturday. In the first episode, we'll be going over a rather bizarre game, surprisingly, being Namco Museum Remix. I know it's surprising that this game would be bizarre, as it's a Namco Museum game, but you'll definitely see why in a bit. But before I start this video, I'd just like to say, please show your support for the United States in the London 2012 Olympics that are taking place right now in Canada. Okay, that was a joke, but if you get the reference to that, you're an OG. What I wanted to actually say is a big thank you to my cousin Kathy for giving me this game. Coming for you, Kathy! Kathy always has the coolest tech, and although I have tech, Kathy gets useful tech. Kathy wouldn't get a Virtual Boy, I would. But I remember 11 years ago, I saw that she had this game for the Wii and it was sealed, and I asked, why haven't you played this game? And she said, I don't even know I had it. So she gave it to me, and without Kathy, this video wouldn't have been possible. It was also very recently her birthday, so I want everyone in the comments to wish Kathy a late happy birthday, as it would mean the world to me, and Kathy of course. So thank you Kathy for the game, and thank you for everything you do. So as you can see, there's a sort of hub world. It is literally octagonal, I think that's the word, and it's like a very small hub world, but it's a hub world regardless. What this game is essentially a compilation of Namco classics, while also featuring remix games. So the first remix one we're gonna do is, we're just gonna peel the band-aid off and play the game that makes me the most uncomfortable, Gator Panic Remix. So if you don't know what Gator Panic is, you're about to see, and this game makes me very uncomfortable. Why is that exactly? Well, you'll see. The goal of the game is to hit gators, so it's essentially me playing Call of Duty. Though it is fiction, so I guess it's kind of okay. And also, Pac-Man's encouraging hitting gators? I would expect that from Donkey Kong, considering K. Rool is his enemy. I'd also expect that from Sonic, simply because he's kind of a jerk. But Pac-Man, you're better than that. So anyways, this is essentially like Whack-A-Mole. The only difference being that all you have to do is hit gators and not get bit. This is based on Namco's physical arcade game Gator Panic, which is essentially the same as this, only if you played in an arcade, you're actually hitting gators that are physical. They actually pop out, it's not digital like this. And I've played it before. It's a pretty good game, but essentially it's like Whack-A-Mole, except instead of moles, it's gators, which they're trying to make it more unique, I get it. But the thing is, what have gators done to you? Moles? They just prevent you from mowing your lawn and really just grind your gears. So I can see why Whack-A-Mole exists, but Gator Panic, I don't understand why unless you're Donkey Kong. But needless to say, this is a pretty good adaptation of Gator Panic for a home console. It uses a combination of the nunchuck and Wii Remote, where you make the hammer motion physically, while also guiding the hammer with the nunchuck. As you can see, I'm not doing very well. I usually do much better than this, but unfortunately, the red gators are getting to me. So, the goal is to not get bit, so it's kind of like a fest of trying to hit gators while also not getting bit. But I prefer the Whack-A-Mole style like they have in New Super Mario Bros. With that one mini-game, Whack-A-Monty Mole, where there's Monty Moles that you have to hit, but also Luigi who you don't want to hit. That's a kind I prefer, but it's pretty decent regardless. It's not one of my favorites in this collection. I doubt it'll have your attention for too long, but it's a pretty faithful adaptation of Gator Panic. As you can see, the turtle is going to be quite sad, as the gator has said, I've seen better. Now, I don't know why he said, I've seen better. Wouldn't he want to see worse? I don't know, that's kind of weird. But no, I had enough gator torture for today. We're going to move on to Galaga Remix. And the weird thing about this game is it uses a combination of motion controls and pointer controls. Now, the reason I wanted to get to Galaga Remix is because Galaga is one of the most iconic arcade games of all time. As you can see, there's Planet Pac-Man, except Pac-Man's hopefully not made out of cheese. We love cheese. So we're gonna go to stage 2. Now with Galaga, everyone knows what it's like, everyone's played it. It's a space shooter, and the gameplay of Galaga is really fun because the aliens move around, and you can also get 2 spaceships, and you know the drill. It's kind of hard to explain Galaga, but everyone knows it, so I don't even think I need to explain it. This, however, is not like Galaga at all, but more like its older brother Galaxian, who is not as cool. I think Galaxian knows at this point that he will never be as cool as Galaga, no matter how hard he tries. But this remix should have been called Galaxian Remix, because that's essentially what it's like. It's nothing like Galaga. You're oddly controlling Pac-Man on a rail, so it's an on-rail shooter type of game. It's very bizarre, and there's something even more bizarre about this game that you'll see in a bit. So you do shoot down aliens just like you do in Galaga, but like I said before, it doesn't have the same gameplay as Galaga. With Gator Panic, it's a great adaptation of Gator Panic, but this is much more like Galaxian, so while it still can be fun, I'd rather just play Galaga any day over this remixed version. Now you do have to shoot more enemies, so it kind of reminds me of Star Fox in a weird way, but Star Fox is actually really good. This is just okay. Unless you play Star Fox Zero, then that game's complete trash, and this game is easily better than that. It's also called Star Fox Zero because that was its average score on Metacritic. So as you can see, there's that Pac-Man planet, so we need to shoot down more aliens to protect Pac-Man planet before it's recycled. And there we go, we're at the very end of the stage. Now, with a lot of the remix games, they're sometimes nothing like the source material, but others are ports of games. I believe Pac-and-Roll was a DS game, they got a remix of that here, but there's also a remix of Motos, which was my favorite to play, so we'll play a little bit of that, and then head over to the arcade, because that is easily the weirdest part of the game, and you'll definitely see why. So, we would play usually every game, but Rally X Remix, I can tell you, it's pretty much like Rally X. I think you can actually use Mii's, but I'm not entirely sure. Then there's Pac-Motos, which is what we're going to be playing. And then there's Pac-and-Roll. I think that one's Pac-and-Roll right there. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. Yeah, that's Pac-and-Roll Remix. So we're going to play Pac-Motos. I may make a part 2 of this, but this was always my favorite game in this collection. So I do have quite a few stages unlocked. But when I had the original Wii that's currently at my grandparents' house, I progressed in the game much further. So essentially what this game is it's a top-down game, similar to bumper cars, kind of, in a weird way, where you can also get power-ups and such, and your goal is apparently to knock over these balls, I think, but it's been a while since I've played it, but it's a very fun game. The power-ups are even cooler, so we completed one part of the stage, and you should be able to see the power-ups very soon. There are all kinds of different ones. It's saving despite being just one stage, so we already made it to stage 5. There's also multiplayer, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a chocolate bar as one of the power-ups. So what I believe this one does is give you a little bit more health. Also, the chocolate bars will not, you don't rub it on your skin and you live forever. That's just not true. But like with all advertisements, they're not entirely true. And of course, it wouldn't be a Demeach video without a SpongeBob reference. So we completed that stage, so you kind of got an idea of what Motos is like, though I remember it a lot more when I was younger and the game was a bit longer, mainly because I was playing against the boss, but I think you guys have the idea. We might as well look at another remix game while we're here. Let's take a look at the Pac-and-Roll remix. So, let's see where it is. Alright. Here it is. So we're going to some castle right now. Thank you, Pac-Man, but our princess is in another castle now. And we're gonna go to stage 3. Like I said, this is apparently a remake of a DS game. I have Pac-Pix. Unfortunately, I do not have Pac-and-Roll, though if I want to get the game at some point, I definitely will. But having it on a console, I'm sure it's much better, because, I mean, it's on a console, it's gonna look better. And if a game relies heavily on touchscreen controls on the DS, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I did enjoy Pac-Pix, that's a really cool game. I got it at an Old Navy out of all places. But some games, they don't utilize the touchscreen well, Diddy Kong Racing DS being one of them. But I think Pac-and-Roll would probably be pretty good. Unfortunately though, I just fell down over there, but it was near the checkpoint. But this is essentially a weird sort of platformer. Hitting the boxes kind of reminds me of Pac-Man World, but instead of Pac-Man having legs, he is literally just a ball, which is... It's a very weird thing how Namco portrays Pac-Man. Over the years, he's had all kinds of designs. If you see the original artwork for Pac-Man in North America, the guy is blazed out of his mind, his eyes are red, though on the artwork for the joystick panel, they're blue, surprisingly. And the artwork for Miss Pac-Man, I mean, it looks much nicer, but it's still very weird. But when I think of Pac-Man, the world design comes to mind first. And of course, you can eat the ghosts when they're blue. So, let's see, we're at the Culvis Gate, and we have to give some pellets, and then we're at the end of the stage. So we reached the goal, that's a little bit of pack and roll, and now it's time to go to the arcade. So, yeah. This was Pack and Roll. It's a very fun game. I would say that Gator Panic is fun, but it won't hold your attention for long. Galaga Remix, it's decent, but Pack and Roll is really good. I also think Motos is pretty good. Do you remember how I said this game is very bizarre at the beginning of the video? Well, the Carnival Arcade is a perfect showcase of that, as if the game hasn't been weird enough already. As you can see, they're celebrating Christmas quite a bit early. We're going to the carnival, we're going to the carnival. Pac-Man, the carnival is back in town. At first glance, everything looks normal about the arcade, other than the arcade machines looking much cooler here than they do in real life. But let's take a look at the games. We're going to start from left to right. We got Pac-Pal, Cutie Q, Galaxian, Xevious, Super Pac-Man, Mappy, Gaplus, Dig Dug, and Pac-Mania. Do you notice an issue here? What kind of a Namco Museum game doesn't include Pac-Man or Galaga? Miss Pac-Man is understandable because that game has licensing issues, but at the time, it didn't. So it was very fair to expect something like Miss Pac-Man to be in the game, but Pac-Man and Galaga are a given. Those are games that should be in every Namco Museum game, and it's baffling that they're not here. There's Galaga Remix, for crying out loud. I get it that they wanted to showcase obscure games, but you have to do it in a certain way. I remember they did something similar with Sonic on the GameCube with Sonic Gems Collection that had the more obscure games, like the Game Gear games, Sonic CD, Sonic the Fighters, and unfortunately Sonic R. But there was also Sonic Mega Collection. At the time, this was the only Namco Museum game on the Wii. They did eventually release Namco Museum Megamix, which did include Pac-Man and Galaga, but at the time, this was a very bizarre choice. So let's take a look at these games, and like I said, they're pretty obscure, and if you've never heard of them, it makes sense. We're going to start off with Pac-Pal. This is one of the official sequels to Pac-Man, and if you've never recognized this game or even heard of it, it's very understandable as to why. This game never saw an official Western arcade release. Originally, it was going to be localized under the name Pac-Man and Chomp Chomp, based on the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. What happened to the game, though, is that it apparently never saw a release, and if you've played it in North America, chances are it's probably a bootleg or imported somehow. Also, that was Arnold in the background, who is the real-life Pac-Man, as he never stops eating. But yeah, this game is very similar to another Pac-Man game, being Super Pac-Man, where the objective is a little bit different. Rather than collecting dots, you're collecting fruit, though unlike Super Pac-Man, it's not in succession. So, what you do here is you open the doors with the cards, and you have to prevent Miru from stealing the fruit. Again, Miru won't hurt you, but to get a perfect score, you want to make sure that she doesn't steal the fruit, although you can keep that orange, I want nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, playing this game with a nunchuck, I'm not used to it, so I might not be that good at the game, which is why the live counter is much higher. Unfortunately, we will have to collect that orange though for a perfect score, but I need to get that power-up very soon. So with the power-ups in this game, they're much more useful than just the Pac Pellet, which turns a ghost blue, as you can actually attack the ghost with these. You can also hide in the... I'm not even going to go in the orange doors, don't remind me of it. But yeah, we just got one more thing to get, it's the Galaxian. So, it is a maze game, but the objective is very different. So yeah, we got a perfect score once again. I had to suffer through the orange, but we did it. We're also going to play through the bonus stage, and it is near impossible to get a perfect score in this bonus game. The objective here is to collect every card, and you want to collect the ones with Miru or the $sign. What one you don't want to collect is the one with Blinky the Ghost. But unfortunately, you will run into him, but you still get the extra points. Now, we're going to go on to Super Pac-Man next, but I wanted to show you one more thing about the game. This game's power-ups aren't limited to just the Galaxians. A lot of the power-ups are references to other Namco games, such as the Rally X. Also, I believe at certain points, you can only collect one card at a time, which is very weird. I did not know that. But it's been a while since I played the game. So we're going to try to get the Rally X because it does have a different effect on the Ghost. So unfortunately we just got the key there. But we are going to get to the Rally X soon. Okay, perfect timing. So what this Rally X does is the same thing that would happen if you put your mouth on the exhaust pipe on a real car. It makes your eyes water and makes you pass out. So Namco was going for a more realistic look here. But I think you have an idea of what Pac-Pal is like. It's seen many re-releases over the years in North America, and I wish Nintendo was that good at localizing some of their more obscure games, as this is a lot of fun. But we're going to move on to Super Pac-Man now, which was actually released in North America. I actually had the chance to play it at Disney Quest, and yes, I'm still making the video on that, and I actually saw one at a flea market being sold for $500. Not buying that was probably one of the dumbest moves I've made, but Super Pac-Man was officially released. This was one of Namco's official sequels to Pac-Man, but does it hold a candle to the original? Or candelabra? Well, let's find out. So as you can see, it looks very similar to Pac-Pal gameplay-wise. What they did here was, instead of focusing on collecting dots in succession, you go for fruit and open doors. Kind of like Hotel Mario, except this game doesn't have funny cutscenes. If it did though, that'd make it even better. But again, it's a very interesting take on Pac-Man. The objective is to get the keys. What I like to do is remain a Super Pac-Man as long as possible, because not only are you invincible, but you can eat through all the gates, and you should be able to eat all the ghosts for a perfect score, but that's what I usually do. I like to go to the much higher level stages, because the fruits are worth more points. So as you can see, we're in the banana stage now, and I'm very happy that Pac-Man has some potassium in his diet, because for the longest time he was eating keys, which probably isn't a good idea to have metal. There's already enough controversy as to whether or not cooking with aluminum decreases your memory. What was I talking about again? But anyway, Super Pac-Man is a very fun game, but it's definitely not as fun as the original Pac-Man. And this game was nowhere near as popular as Pac-Man, but I just cleared the stage. It wasn't perfect, but it still has the cutscenes and everything. By far the most popular sequel here was Miss Pac-Man, but even games like Junior Pac-Man were likely more popular than this, simply because of how different this game is compared to the original. And like I said before, Namco was always going for something different when it came to the official sequels. That is until we get into Pac-Mania. So we're going to go into Pac-Mania next. I wanted to specifically cover the Pac-Man games because this is Pac-Palooza. I would love to go over QDQ, but again, I've never heard of that game. I don't think I even played it, and I don't really think there's ever a time where I'd need to play it. Also, he's eating burgers now. So it appears that Ronald McDonald has sponsored this game, just like Coca-Cola did for Pac-Man Plus, but we'll definitely get there. Also, I miss you, Ronald McDonald. We're going to start a movement to bring Ronald McDonald back. He is the best mascot, and nobody can convince me otherwise. But before I go on a Ronald McDonald tangent, we're going to quit the game and then go to Pac-Mania. So we're going to return to the arcade. And yeah. So overall, before we end this video, what do I think of Namco Museum Remix? Despite how obscure the collection of arcade games is, this is a great game. This is a great collection of games. It's very cool that the obscure games were here. And although it's weird that Pac-Man and Galaga aren't here and some of the remix games aren't very good, you know, it's definitely cool to see the spotlight shining on some of the more obscure games, giving light to some of the games that weren't exactly the most popular, and it's cool seeing them in a different light. But this is one of the sequels that Namco made that is more like traditional Pac-Man, being Pac-Mania. It has an isometric view, and you can actually jump, making the game a bit easier. I actually played this in real life too, but the machine had red and black 3D graphics, just like everyone's favorite system, the Virtual Boy. And if you've ever seen a system like that, I'd love to hear it because I couldn't find any information about it on the internet. But Pac-Mania is very similar to Pac-Man, but with very impressive graphics for the time. They still look nice to this day, and an isometric viewpoint. This was used probably to make it seem technologically impressive, which it is. But yeah, like I said, if you're playing a Pac-Man game, this is what you'd probably expect. At the time, this was the closest thing we saw to a sequel to Pac-Man from Namco specifically that was similar to the first game. The other ones, like I said, were Bally Midway's unofficial sequels. So we're going to Pac-Man's Park now. It's a Pac-Man theater. I wonder what movies will be playing. Maybe the Terminator? I'll be Pac. Nothing better than laughing at your own jokes. But anyways, this is a very cool collection. Do I recommend getting it? Well, considering that Namco Museum Megamix exists, get that one. This game is still cool. If you can find it for a good price, I'd recommend getting it. It's a very interesting game to say the least, and I've had a lot of fun with it over the years. But I think this concludes today's episode of Pac-Palooza, and join us for next episode where we go over Pac-Man Arrangement. Well, anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and keep calm and waka on.